Hello everybody and welcome to Best in the West, the League of Legends show, where we talk about the LEC playoffs. I am Budget Lee Sin and joining me is Budget Aphelios, and we're going to be taking you through the best of fives that happened this weekend. Veteran, we had two 5k bangers and one series that was a bit more of a sweep. I know you've also been kind of rewriting all your memories with EU Masters experiences. So how are you? What are the remnants that you still have of the memories of the last weekend?
Nyla priority from Excel that seemed to catch Fnatic off guard. Neon and Patrick both had really good performances, and I'm really glad to see that from them because they are two of my top three. Fnatic are like doing it again right now. The plot armor is too strong.
Exactly.
I'm really sad that we get denied Neon v Patrick because I really wanted to see that. I think Patrick had some of the highest highs of any ADC this split, and Neon for me was like the highest level of consistency. So I really wanted to see them against each other. But instead, we'll have to see whatever this is.
Unfortunately, the script writing is too strong. Fnatic is once again making the lower bracket run. Last year, Summer Split as well, they beat, I think it was Vitality 3-2. And then they faced Misfits as well in the next round. And they also won their 3-2. So, you know, it's just the copy-paste format. They're getting lazy with the scripts. But I think last week it was pretty exciting, actually. It was the first time in weeks that I was back at the studio, which is always great just to get re-energized and be with all those cool people around you in the studio, especially on the G2 game day against Misfits, because they brought the G2 army, which fortunately enough wasn't obnoxious. They were just very enthusiastic and very passionate in a good way, you know. But they definitely had a few challenges prepared, which was cool to see. So overall, I'm pretty happy with the personal experience. Professionally, I had a few moments where I thought, okay, EU, let's go. We're working on this. And then on Saturday, I watched Genji versus T1 and Top Esports versus JDG, if my memory serves correctly. And those were 3-0 stomps with some of the most insane gameplay I've seen. So then I was like, you know what, EU, it's fine. We'll see if we can get one team in quarters, and we'll call it a win, right? If it's
3-0 stomps, all right, it's another way to think about it. Wow, this team isn't getting much good practice in their region, you know?
Oh yeah, you can also say they are beatable. That's true. Yeah.
Exactly. Whereas EU, on the other hand, you know, oh my god, we're going tooth and nail. We fight for every single inch of the rift, man. We know the struggle, you know. We're ready for the marathon of the World Championships.
It's true. This is a league where BDS can beat G2. You know, we are that strong.
Exactly. Now you're getting it.
It's a good spin on it. I don't know if there's any particular series that you want to get us started off with. There are many games that happened. We're probably not going to discuss every single game, just as a heads up. We
won't go like game by game. I mean, that always sucks to do anyway.
Exactly.
Like, I think for me, like the big thing is that ADC is quite clearly like the strongest consistent role in Europe right now.
Yeah.
Mid lane has Caps. Like Caps' performance in the first game against
so
Misfits
insane.
was nuts. The Ari performance was brilliant. One of the only actually good things I'll give Ari is that she is able to get lane priority in most matchups in the first 5 levels. But in that draft that they actually did, I'll put that draft up because I just want to explain why this was so impressive.
Yeah, they first picked Sejuani in that one.
The draft itself wasn't very, like, that was actually, I was kind of worried for G2 on the draft. Because when you look here, right, you want to be playing for Nocturne, but Sivir Lulu has easy access to wave control on bot side. Every time that they've done this Yasuo bot lane, they've more or less had Yasuo come into a skirmish like 20 CS down and get good kills from that. But you're basically saying we're going to play with low priority in bot. Ornn is actually good into Sejuani. It's kind of a skill matchup, but Ornn has all of the options. You W Sejuani's stun and you just E her R and you're all good there. Like Ornn can actually do a lot to get lane control on top side as well. So you're basically going to play with 2 losing side lanes, but you have a farming Nocturne that you want to play for. So the only one who can really play with Jankos there is Caps. and you can't do it bot side, you'd have to do it top side if anything. And every top side opening, Caps was there on the invade.
Yeah.
Like, I love the level 1 invade against Vi. Vi level 1 is really weak.
They did the late invade here, where they waited for a bit, and then Zazar was forced to flash out. It was basically out of the game entirely from that point onward.
But he's not out the game entirely unless you have Caps able to be there on every topside re-invade, and he was, and Yanko steamrolled ahead off of it, and every time in Caps should be there, he was there despite 2 losing side lanes, and if you don't do that, you can't realistically make RE work here.
Yep.
And it was so impressive just how on the ball he was. Every second he needed to be there, he was there. It was, I can say that over and over again, but it was just so impressive. They didn't have very good windows to play for in that early game, but they did it. I expected them to be like, maybe they'll go even and then just try to like all in on a Drake contest or something, but it was just, Caps dominated the entire map. And that was the best mid performance of single split.
Well, I think the fun part for me to see here was you never really know what to expect from G2 heading into a best of 5. Like, maybe they start a bit quieter and save the wacky stuff for later, but now it's just bam, Nocturne, Yasuo, Senna, you know, these are all champions that we haven't really seen this split, and they whip it out and they make it work. I also, obviously, what was such a successful what was so successful for G2 in their spring split run was the Caps Yanko synergy that just completely popped off, and they were constantly finding each other. And that first game was like, okay, they're just gonna do it again, I guess. It's without losing the first series. But I think for me, watching that series, I mean, you can't help but just lean back and say, yep, Caps is doing Cap things again. You know, it was such a marvel to see him go on a rampage again. I think he had that extended, like, 5 kills or something when they were fighting in the blue area, and the LEC voice comms came out as well. And they were kind of saving the final kill as well for Caps. And you hear Yanko saying, in this tone as well, yay, Caps, you're so good. Wow, you get kill. Ooh. You know, like, yeah, because he knew obviously that the people would be going wild for it. But I very much agree with you. Like, that first game, G2 was so sharp. They saw basically every window where they could punish Misfits in what they in any window that Misfits could climb back into the game. G2 was there and was in their face saying, yeah, absolutely not. We're shutting this window down.
I mean, I would disagree on, like, the wackiness of it. I think Yasuo is a strong counter into Sivir. We've seen 2 different LEC teams opt into it this split, and we see multiple ERL teams opt into it. Like, today, time of recording, is actually day 2 of EU Masters. Rogue just did that into LDLC. They had a pretty significant lead for a while until other shenanigans happened with that. Yasuo's strong there. I know, like, having a melee bot laner feels weird, but it's definitely a logical pick, and we've consistently seen it into Sivir specifically. And I like the Lulu into the Yasuo.
I understand
it early, but
I can understand it's historically maybe a good matchup into it, but we haven't seen it like very consistently. The trade-off has been Zeri Sivir this split, you know, where last split it was Jinx Aphelios. Now it's been more the Zeri Sivir that we've seen being traded mostly. But I mean, it's still, you know, maybe it's a scrim bubble they had or something. It's still a strategy that not many people would instantly assume they would default to now.
Well, not many ADCs can do the Yasuo. But, like, you had Jezu even doing it, so clearly, like, people can do it in Europe, you know? I just think it needs more adoption by other teams, but it's definitely, for me, this is kind of like a standard counter. And in the ERLs, you'd see Yasuo boss a lot.
Yeah, I think Flacco played it earlier this split as well, right? Or am I mistaken?
Yeah, he did. Remember? Yeah, they had with Yone topside and Jarvan jungle, I remember.
Yes. So, I mean, it's a combination they definitely like playing as well. So, in that regard, I guess maybe it should have been a bit more expected or whatever. But I still think that the fact that you can play that bot lane is a good sign for G2, because if you remember at the start of the year, it was mostly Flacco on save lane duty, you know, and Yasuo is very much more a champion where you have to take risk or you're forced to, you know, confront your enemy because you're melee, you know, like you don't, you can't just play the poke war, which he used to play with Senna when he was in the spring split on Senna duty almost constantly. So I think it's a good, maybe not a huge evolution for G2 to see, but that they're now consistently comfortable with going for that stuff for Flacket is a good sign. It's still very much the Caps and Yanko show. If you and they play mostly through top side. Irrelevant was having a pretty rough series this against G2 because that's how G2 plays. But I think at the same time, if I looked at this ADC matchup, obviously Neon was having a great series, but I think Flacket held his own very well in what he was supposed to do for the team.
I mean, yes, but that is somewhat that's true, but it's also never really something I'll comment on when you have players like Caps and Yankers who give you so much space.
I guess
the margin for error is very, very small when you're on such an elite team like that, and particularly with him, he has Targamas. Targamas sets up the map like no one else. He should have been MVP last split. And I feel like he's being robbed of so much credit. His control of the map's nuts. Part of the thing that they get by having Flacket on Yasuo is they get Targamas on Senna. And that is really, really big for them.
Yeah.
But in this aspect, Misfits clearly came in prepared, because even in the first game, when they were down 11 kills, they were able to get tempo priority on the Herald swap on top side. They understood those timings, even if they needed to potentially sacrifice a bit of economy on the resets on bot side for it. They did the bot side synchronization perfect. They opened in top side lane, because they knew if they could get access towards River from that and from the priority there, then the fact that they didn't have midsection wouldn't matter so much. And they were able to go into the Herald, which got them actual map tempo despite a massive gold deficit in the first game. That went a bit unnoticed because when you see 11-0 on the screen, normally it's very easy to just phase out. But luckily it's happened game one, so I wasn't asleep yet. And in the second game, it was insanely strong how they were able to play heavy for map tempo there. And I truly felt like Game 3 was in their hands. I'm desperately trying to remember what it is that went so wrong in Game 3. Because Game 3, Misfits easily could have won that game. And I've watched so much EUM that I've forgotten why.
Yeah, because
I remember. Yeah, I remember.
It wasn't the Baron, right? It wasn't the Baron where G2 turned the Game 3 around. But if we linger a bit on Game 2, I made a meme tweet saying, emergency meeting at G2 because they discovered that Sanzara has learned a fourth champion, which is Sejuani, which he played pretty well, honestly. But I think, come on, he found great ults with that.
He fluffed a ton of them as well, but go on.
I mean, he was in the moments where Misfits was trying to find an advantage on the map, he was there and he hit I'm not gonna say he hit every ult, obviously not, but he had a great game there. I think from especially compared to what I expected to see, which was when Jankos would just break his ankles. I think Sanzara did at the second game did a good job.
I will not linger too much on this point, except to say that I really thought this guy should be reported overall for this series. But I'm not going to linger too much on Zanzibar stuff here.
For the whole, I mean, yeah, the Skarner game was not.
The Vi game was the most egregious.
Oh yeah,
the issues that they had consistently, even in the game that they won, and the reason why they lost Game 3 for me was that the only person who ever seemed to understand the actual positioning you need to have on Baron to be able to turn was Neon, and none of his frontline understood it.
I do agree with this. Yeah.
So it's irrelevance first split. Kind of understand that. Zanzibar is literally there because he has a brain. He's definitely not there because he has hands. And he didn't seem to understand it. Mercer's in his first season. Maybe it's somewhat forgivable, but why not at least consider your AD carries positioning the whole time there as well and try to position accordingly? Because Neon understood the positioning, but every time the enemy team moves up, he has to walk away. And the whole team gets stuck in Baron Pit, or they have to run up try, because none of them are actually in a position to turn when they're on full engage champs. And this was Game 2 and Game 3. And it was so infuriating Game 3 because they had Game 3 in the fucking bag. And it could have cost them Game 2 at points.
Yeah. Well, I think Neil's positioning also stood out to me throughout the series. Obviously, he played Sivir, and then he played Sivir, and then he played Sivir. And in the final game, he played Sivir, you know, but still, they found a champion that works for him. Obviously, it's a very strong champion in the meta at the moment. But I also if you saw how consistently he was able to deal out a lot of damage, just simply auto-attacking, sidestepping, just minimal adjustments to where he stood relative to his team and where the fight was happening. He was just auto-attacking for free. He was dealing so much damage. I think they showed it in one of the at the end of one of the games how much damage he did, and was twice
55k damage when the next guy had 12.
Exactly.
He also understood when to go 1-for-1. I remember there was a fight around Drake where he flashed in to insta-gib the backline and he died for that, but off of that his team could actually carry through and win the fight. I believe it was with Ari. His team could actually win the fight off of his elimination on the backline. And that was so good.
Yeah, and that play made me so excited in regards that, people could meme him, okay, he's Sivir, he has a distance and he's just going to auto-attack free from a safe position. But there you can see, okay, he also has the eye for when he needs to go forward and hunt for that kill. So, I mean, you and I have been very positive about Neon all split. And I think, in the final weeks of the regular split, and now as well, people are catching on. Not obviously that but it's so gratifying to see him finally get that validation, because he's an insane player. And that was cool. But I think, if I think about the series overall, obviously G2 had no real stakes heading into the game because they already qualified for Worlds. You could say that they obviously do want to go for the upper bracket run. Make it the easy way, but I think it was still, and many people would, I don't know many people, but that would be a sweep. G2 would be easy peasy, but I think Misfits at moments was very competitive. Obviously they had the second game victory, was good to see. They adapted, they bounced back, but I would say they're more competitive than I expected them to be, if I'm very honest, because G2 has such a defined, I think, roster in what they want to do, where Misfits is a bit more loose in how they want to play out the game. And as you highlighted earlier, the experience on the team is just inferior far to what G2 is bringing to the table. So I think Misfits overall held together well. I'm very excited to see them go against Fnatic, actually, because Neon versus Upset, that's gonna be a banger.
I really want Neon to get to Worlds, man, but if his team ints him again, I'm gonna be so sad, because his performance now reminds me so much of Hans Sammer, but Hans Sammer had insane solo laners as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And I know VTO got a lot of hype, but it's all fucking dead and everybody's back to reality, and it's not the same here, right?
No.
They don't really have nuts. Irrelevant had some good laning, but they don't have those kinds of solo laners like Odo and Larson that can basically do everything themselves, right?
Exactly.
So he is coming in at a disadvantage, because Wonder and Humanoid look really fucking good right now. Humanoid, especially on that Silas, was fucking insane in their BO5 against XL.
Yep.
And I don't see the counterplay there, and then it's Zanzibar, who didn't have the best series, into Razork, who, obviously the Spanish scene exploded and got him on trending on Twitter, but he is clearly ignoring the fuck out of people on his team again and doing what he wants to do.
Yeah, and it's working.
Smurfing the whole game. Of course it is. It's Razork's brain is insane when it comes to jungling. And I'm so glad that he's fucking unleashed again. Because that's how you get this team to Worlds, right?
I mean,
I just don't see it, you know.
Razork and Humanoids in that series were just. I mean, obviously, the first game they kind of got washed by XL as a team, and it took them a bit to come together. But you could see that in that game 3, where they had their backs against wall, it took them literally 2 games and 30 minutes to start playing as a team. But you could see it coming online. You could see the wheels finally started turning. Then in game 4, at the Baron, obviously had a very clutch Baron steal, Razork. But I think overall, this guy, he stands up when the team needs him to. You saw it in the final week of the LEC regular split as well, where Fnatic needed the 3-0 to stay alive. And he was there, through those 3 games, he was the guy keeping the team together and making the close plays. And now as well, you saw Upset going, almost being caught out, and Razork with his, I mean,
You could call it 50 times this series. Some banger moments. Go on.
You know the moment I'm referring to.
I know what you mean.
Yeah.
And Razor was like, no, not today. Back here. Right. No. Fuck it.
Exactly.
He's figured out how to turn his teammates' ints into baits. You know.
Yeah. So when I think about Excel and Misfits and Fnatic facing off, you know, if you have a jungler who's gonna step up and beat that clutch, if you have a mid laner like Humanoid, like I'm not sure if he's gonna show up on the day yet, you know, because it's still a bit iffy for me. But you see the capabilities he has, and even like in I think he was relatively consistent in lane. He didn't, you know, randomly die.
I will refer you back to my thesis. It's not a humanoid problem, it's how the team plays the map problem, and Razork is playing it as he thinks best, and suddenly, humanoid isn't dying all the time anymore in lane. It's that dynamic of Razork is playing the map as he believes the map should be played again, and therefore humanoid is able to play the map as it should be played without being unnecessarily punished for it, and they actually get things from it.
Well, I think we also said, you know,
no coincidence that they both come up together at the same time. It's no coincidence. It's absolutely because of the things.
Sure, but I mean, before. we also discussed earlier that it takes two to tango, and you know, if Humanoid at some point thinks he should be in a certain position, he should also communicate with Razork. So there's also an increased level of communication that's going right for those two, for them to, I guess, both stand out more in a positive way in these games.
We know Humanoid was a communicator, though, because that's what they were trying to replace Humanoid with over on Mad Lions. When they lost him, they wanted to immediately get a shot caller in. So I think it's just more that there's more agreement.
But then he joined Fnatic and it was a shit show, so...
yes, because Razork suddenly needed to get used to a different way of jungling, right? Yeah. Which now he's ignoring. I guess... And I don't believe that was Humanoid's way that he was trying to get used to at all, right? Like, this is no longer a heavy bot-centric team. You even saw people
that's
being like,
true.
XL were the bot-centric team. Mm-hmm. Now it's a full map team. Humanoid's always played well with a jungler, understands that, like Aoyoya, like Shadow, he's played well with full map junglers, and now Razork's full map jungler, Humanoid looks back to normal because it was always this was always the fucking issue, and people misattributed it every time. And it really annoys me.
I remember saying in one of the earlier episodes that we recorded that we thought Fnatic has the possibility of being a very versatile team in terms of what they want to play for. They can play for bot, they can play for mid, and I remember saying back then... Sorry?
Yeah.
Go on, but I remember us saying back then we doubted that they would ever try to shift away from being a bot-centric team because, you know, they haven't even nailed this down yet. But now what we are seeing is that they are putting less emphasis on it. Now, obviously, they had this fucking obsession with Lucy and Nami, which just really grinded basically everybody's gears. Because, like, really? Oh, my God. Like, what are you trying to do? And then, like...
Game one, they were still a bot-centric team. And it's like, over the course of this series, they realized maybe the answer is not to just send more people bot, all right? Let's try something new. And it worked. And I'm glad for them. I'm sad for Patrick, but I'm glad for them. Right?
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's like reverse sweeps are awesome because you can see a team slowly coming together and slowly refinding, I guess, or rediscovering the motivation, the joy in playing the game, you know, because I saw after game 2, like, obviously their face is going to be depressed, you know, like, the game 2 rounded up and they were off the stage within a blink of an eye. Makes sense, right? You're in a terrible spot and you're on the brink of having a monumental disappointment of a split. But as I said, man, 2 minutes, two games and 30 minutes, and then they suddenly found each other, and slowly but surely it started working.
Also,
it was really impressive.
I have a bone to pick, by the way, with the narratives that are going on. Can you bring up my screen?
Absolutely.
Okay. This, is a Fnatic winning draft. Okay, too many people were saying on Twitter that this draft favored XL and that Yamato got away with like 5 bad drafts. He had at least one good draft, and this was definitely it. I love Yuumi first, Because if the enemy picks anything, you have a pairing with Yuumi, or anything that is like super strong in the meta right now, you have a pairing with Yuumi that counters it. The Twitch does it in a way that other champs don't. So like Vayne is theoretically a good counter into a Sivir, right? But the reason why Twitch is one of the most optimal ones is because in this situation, right, even Sivir with all her frontline, the moment Twitch presses R, there is no area Sivir can be in the fight where she's not just getting insta-gibbed by this Twitch. There's no area. Twitch has his frontline, Sivir has her frontline, Sivir is losing this fight. They then ended up with double disengage with Poppy and Gragas, and you have a Sylas with Nocturne ult, Kennen ult, Sejuani ult, and Sivir ult. They have a full disengage composition with Twitch into a full engaged Sivir composition that gets outranged by this. If they just play back and peel for Twitch and not just have Twitch go for suicide flanks, which is what happened for like 30 minutes, then they win this, they win these fights. And you started to see that the few actual groupings they got, they were just winning all of those fights.
Yep.
Fnatic should have won this game from draft. They played some mind-blowingly bad league, but they were able to eventually get there. And this was a good draft. I like this draft from Fnatic. This was good. They had all the tools to win in this one. I like it.
Yeah, I mean, Twitch Yuumi is just on its own a very good combination, right? Like, you have the possibility of just pressing Twitch Q, you go invisible, Yuumi, and you show up together and the enemy is dead, right? But I think what you saw with this composition, it took such a long time to come online and for Upset to actually be effective as well in dealing out damage. And I'm not sure what was going wrong for Fnatic, because as you said, it seems like a pretty straightforward thing to do, where you just say, okay, the enemy comes into me, we either stun them or lock them up, and we have the Twitch free firing in the backline, because that's what he does. He presses R and you just melt in front of him.
There were a lot of scenarios where XL were able to make picks on Upset, and Upset just didn't want to move towards his Poppy or his Gragas or whatever, and it would just get insta-gibbed, right? Like, it was just they weren't moving together. In these scenarios, and they were able to get picks off, and so these fights didn't happen. Or sometimes these fights did happen, and Upset was looking to flank and didn't wait for a certain key ultimate or something to go off. Like, I remember at one point, he flanked and he didn't even track the Sejuani ult, and the Sejuani just insta-gibbed him in the face, right? Yeah. The moment he came out. So, like, whereas, you know, you play this as a pretty simple front-to-back, kite-back comp, and, you know, it's really difficult for XL to play into it.
Yeah.
But if you catch Upset beforehand, then obviously it gets really hard.
So, one topic that was a point of discussion around Fnatic series as well is the consistent banning of Draven and Kalista.
And Nyla this game.
Yeah, Nyla after game 1, I think. Did they ban it every time? Yeah, Draven, Kalista, Nyla, Draven, Kalista, Nyla, Draven, Kalista, Sivir, actually. Okay. And then Draven, Kalista, and Wukong, I think, on the final one. So they definitely were not a fan of the Draven and Kalista. I'm not sure what to make of this, other than they probably can't play with the champions that are required to play against these, right? Because Kalista is a very lane dominant champion, obviously. Draven is also pretty dominant in what he wants to do. So I guess in that regard, maybe they still wanted to have their bot lane somewhat safe.
Well, they wanted to do Lucian. Yeah, they wanted to do Lucian Nami and have heavy prio bot lane, but Kalista and Draven can both heavily contest heavy prio bot, and Patrick is a ridiculously good Draven and Kalista player. So given that they wanted Lucian Nami priority, and you really need to be able to stomp lane with that to make it useful, because you kind of become an ult bot later unless enemy heavy mispositions, it's understandable that they banned those two. Obviously, we can just meme that they are terrified of Patrick, but in fairness, that is a lot of respect to Patrick, right? Like, you are so good on Draven Kalista that we do have to ban these to play a lane dominant thing, but most Draven Kalistas should be able to do this as well. I just don't like that priority that they have bot lane with Draven Kalista. I didn't like it at all. Yeah. And I was relieved to see them like switch it up here, which I thought was a good draft again. The Nyla, I remember when the Nyla got picked, I was thinking, like, why were they... Because G2 said that they were doing really well in scrims, right? That XL were doing really well in scrims. I was thinking, like, why were XL doing really well in scrims? They locked in Nyla, and I was like, oh, yeah. They're the only team practicing this champ. So you are just going to have no real experience playing against this champion. unless you're scrimming XL, you know?
Yeah.
So XL will just get a bunch of free fucking wins in scrims because of this.
Yeah.
And then I'm fully fine with them banning Nyla afterwards because it's like, you have no practice against this.
Yeah.
Fuck
I mean,
it.
that makes sense. But to me, you know, like, and also the emphasis on the Lucian Nami.
Yeah.
I mean, it's...
Yeah, I don't like that.
Yeah. I think very few people do because we saw it being ineffective basically all laning phases, which is where they were supposed to be strong, right? So I'm not sure if this is just if you can attribute some of it to personal execution, you know, like the level of play they were showing in those games, or if it's just, you know, please give up on this pick. Maybe just they can't play something else. Maybe this in scrims is working the best for them.
Yeah.
But I was having flashbacks to when Fnatic kept picking Twisted Fate in their series against Rogue, which Humanoid kept dying on and was having a pretty tough time in that series. And I was thinking, but you're not winning the bot lane. Your bot lane is not doing what you're supposed to do with this draft. Why are you sticking to this? So I think that's definitely a concern for me for Fnatic if I look forward, because as the enemy, like if you're Misfits, you're gonna say, okay, they can only play Lucian Nami or maybe like a Twitch, you know. But if we ban Yuumi or first pick it ourselves, what are they gonna do? You know.
There are two specific feedback loops I think are happening here that cause Lucian Nami priority to be so high across the board, because like Mad Lions had it as well. And one is the LPL are very, very big on Lucian Nami, and that is the main league that other people will watch if they're trying to learn something. Cloak players especially, they mostly watch that league now. And in that league, there's a fuck ton of fighting. And they specifically play around the Lucian ult as well, with combos that we don't see people do in Europe. And then scrims are the other one. So basically every time you get a reset of some kind, so like we have a couple of weeks break between regular split and playoffs, or the month break you have between spring summer, or the months you have between summer and next spring, you will generally get people deciding what is best based on scrims themselves, and as a result you end up with heavy priority on early game champions, and generally by the time, like later on in any tournament or in any split, you normally see the game tend back towards like late game stuff, normally the further you get. And a lot of that is because in scrims you just end up with like 30 kills at 20 minutes, you know?
Yeah.
And that's like really common. And Lucian's so good in that, Kallista's so good in that, you know, that's why you see those champions so much at the beginning of any split.
Yeah, I mean, but that's something we've discussed before, but I wonder why, if they're finding that in a series they're not finding the success that they are having in scrims, why they're not like stepping away from it. You know, like, sure, you had Twitch Yuumi one game, but the other 4 games were Lucian Nami, and the laning was all unsuccessful. So I'm hoping for them that they diversify, that they are able of diversifying in this meta. You don't, like, I would assume that playing Sivir is also a possibility for them. Sivir Lulu, you know, is also a combination I think they should easily be able to play. But yeah, it was just giving me flashbacks to just the Twisted Fate of spring. I was like, yeah, you know.
Yeah. At that point, you just have the issue that you're not really practiced on anything else. Yeah. They were doing Lucian Nami that whole week in scrims. It's not that simple to just insta-switch the way your comp plays, right? For some players it is. Like, Nukeduck just seems to not give a fuck what he picks mid, right?
Yeah, he just first picks champions, he doesn't care. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think, like, that's not common.
No, of course it's not common, but then you should probably say, okay, just practicing Lucian Nami is not a very optimal strat, and we probably should try at least one scrim block with different bot lane combinations, because you know, we should have backup options, because this is a guarantee that the enemy are just going to see this and like, well, this is the only thing they can play. Let's find a way to tackle this, and we should be good, right? So yeah, Yamato did have a very funny tweet though about like somebody showing him a scroll. I don't know if you saw that one, but you know,
I disagree with anything you say there. Just if you're having so much feedback and your team is your knowledge base as well, it's difficult to step in as a coach there. But like, for example, clearly XL were a lot better prepared in terms of the amount of things that they could play. That's because they have a coach who's very interventionalist on the game knowledge side of things, right? So it can be, if you have very dominant voices in particular roles, you will get locked into these things so much faster, right? Unless like your coach is a dominant voice that can override that in terms of game knowledge stuff. And like I know Youngbuck can do that. Yamato's always been like the hype guy. I can understand how. I'm not defending that it happened. I just can understand the process by how it happens there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I also don't know if they were scrimming. Maybe they were just stomping whoever they were scrimming constantly. I don't know. I'm assuming they were scrimming Mad Lions because Mad Lions had the same priority on Lucian Nami.
Yep, probably. I would assume it was like a scramble with G2, Rogue, and I guess Excel or something.
I mean, it's less likely to be G2 because they could have potentially played them in the next round. So
no, I'm saying G2, Rogue, and Excel are a bubble, and then you have Mad, Fnatic, and Misfits.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree on that.
Probably something like this, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, overall, obviously, for the LEC, it's good that Fnatic stays alive because they're an org that attracts a lot of viewers. And also, I think if we compare to last year, that low bracket run was very impressive. So keeping that alive is good. I do think with Excel though in this series, two people who are having rough games. Well, Finn and Mickey had some really, really rough games.
Oh god, man, the Mickey Yumi game where he just sat on Ari the whole time when he has like a fucking Nyla on his team. I have no idea what was going on there. It was so fucking wild to me. Like if this guy was attached onto Patrick, like any of these fights, I'm convinced they just win game 4.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah, I think so as well. It was a rough. I mean, not every game of him was rough, but you know he had a few very rough moments. Finn as well on the Ornn got caught out a few times. I remember very distinctly. I think it might even have been game 5. Did he play Ornn in game 5? Yeah, where Fnatic was coming in, engaging with the Ornn ult. I think because Humanoid had the Ornn ult stolen. They were running down mid. They were engaging with the Ornn ult, and basically, Excel was all stunned up or like all about to get knocked up, and Finn had his own Ornn ult. So it's like, but why aren't you using your Ornn ult? Sacrifice yourself and let your team run away. You know, like that. Now you're all gonna die. So I think he and Mickey had some really rough moments in that series.
Marcoon's last game as well. Like you could see, he felt the pressure. Like I don't think any Sedge ult landed. It was so sad to see. And when he blew that and Finn blew his ult, it was basically over. They had no options left. And the game should have been so easy. They can literally walk forward and the enemy has to put themselves in positions where it's easy to throw your stuff. But they were impatient. They were feeling the pressure. Fnatic, like, say what you want about, like, taking so many veteran players on the super team. In those moments, they will be calmer.
Yeah, of course.
They will be able to think. And when it comes to, like, Marcoon Finn, they haven't been in these kinds of situations. So Finn's never won a game 5. Like, they haven't... Genuinely, they haven't been in these situations enough. And you could really show that ended up being the discrepancy here.
Yeah,
because those two guys severely underperformed in the final game. Severely. Marcoon had a decent series before that point.
I mean, Finn has some experience. You know, he went to Worlds with Rogue, but it's also quite a while ago. And obviously last year he had a very rough time in America. But I think like this split overall, I was, you know, pretty fine with this play. But yeah, this when it came under pressure, you saw it crumbling. You saw the team just falling apart, with Fnatic having so much better map play. They just pushed Excel around, especially in game 5. They pulled the strings on them very well. I think I'm just wondering, what do you do now as Excel? Obviously, you're going to take a break and reset, but you brought Mickey on to be like, you know, the veteran shot caller. And actually, if you listen to the voice comms, remember when they were pushing base? I think it was game 4 and Elder came up. Was it game 4? He was the one calling, no guys, we can do this, we have a wave. When I think they had one siege minion to work with. Now obviously, you know, there's a plethora of things that go wrong for Excel to lose that game, but yeah, I don't know. It was just tough to see them falling apart as a team, because game 1 and 2 I was like, okay, fucking hell, this is gonna be a sweep. You know, everybody in the studio was like, well, I guess we're going home early. And they looked good. They looked fine, but it was basically their summer regular split summarize, where in the beginning they look very good, and then they drop off, and towards the end, you know, it's just they need to rediscover themselves, and they didn't really do so. Yeah, unfortunate for Excel, but there has to be a loser. And they were it on
I mean, that must feel so... Like, I had memes prepared and everything, but, like, getting reverse swept like that when they had Game 3, like, I just can't post at that point. Like, it's just rude, you know?
It was actually heartbreaking, man, to see that happen. It was actually too rough.
They had it, you know? They actually genuinely had it.
Yeah.
It's so sad.
They dropped the ball quite hard.
Neither of Mad or Rogue deserved to be at Worlds, though. You know, like it was so sad to me that like Mad got to qualify off that series. That series was fucking bollical, man. It was insane.
Yeah, the first two games were a bit of a fiesta. Huh? I remember clearly. I think we were after game 2. I was talking to a friend who was in the audience. They were like, you know what? One of these teams is going to go to Worlds. One of these teams is there's a pretty big likelihood that one of these teams is going to be in Malmö for like a semi-final. At least they'll be entertaining, you know. But it's not going to be good gameplay because, man alive, that was a series, dude. It's exciting when it goes to Game 5, and Game 5 itself was also very tense. I think it was like a 40-minute game. Where Rogue eventually came out on top. But, well, Matt's strategy was very much target Malrang, which I would assume is a very, very effective strategy heading into the series, and it proved to be a relatively effective strategy, where in Game 1, they invaded his blue buff, completely shut him out of the game. And in Game 3 as well, they haunted bots, prevented Malrang from doing anything there. And in Game 5, they did the same thing, where they invaded the red buff this time around, and they put Malrang behind early again. So I think they had a pretty clear strategy coming in. Rogue seemed to need a bit more time in trying to finding out how they wanted to approach the series, or what they should do in order to play against Mad Lions. But in the late game, they were quite clearly, I would say, a more composed team in the moment around objectives.
Yeah, I mean, I really liked something I really liked about Rogue was their particular responses to Lucian Army. Right, they seem to understand that this isn't something really to be feared. I wasn't so hot on the Civi Yumi aspect of it, but I was really hot on their final Caitlyn Lux Orianna draft. Yeah, like it was Shields O'Clock, but it was so difficult to get a super high level of priority against them on bot side, and they would scale really well into later stages of the game, and the dive to actually get on top of them just wasn't really there. I liked it. I didn't really like the Orianna, but I liked everything else about it. Man, like I wish I had a lot better points to say about this game. And I'll be real, like a lot of the from watching EUM for the last few days, like definitely
blurry.
this shit ain't like fresh in my head or something.
Yeah.
You know? Let me see if I can get the
sure.
noggin going.
I mean, what I'll say is that I think that what we saw in Game 5 from Rogue, the Caitlyn Lux, is just to me a signal that obviously we have seen them play this before. They're I think they're the only bot lane who plays this actually in EU very actively, where Trimby is comfortable on the Lux. We saw it again. I think in some fights he dealt the most damage because he was just firing away with his spells. Super effective on it, and he's a practiced Lux player. I think to me, that final pick in Game 5, it might not have been like flashy or a wacky draft, but because we hadn't really seen it before in the series, I wasn't really expecting it. And for Rogue, who everybody is saying, you know, like they still have this stigma of being the chokers, going for something else, trying to counter it, it's a good sign, because it shows that they're comfortable with themselves and what they want to play, and they're confident in that they can execute on it when it matters most. So in that regard, I would say they at least do not feel as much pressure, where you could say if you're under pressure, you might be more inclined to go for a very safe option that you maybe on stage has proven to work well for you. Where Caitlyn Lux, we haven't seen it a whole lot.
No, we haven't, but it's actually like comp used to be just known as a Caitlyn player.
I mean, I know he's a Caitlyn player, but
yeah.
for them to play it in these crucial moments, it's similar to like, you know, if Hans Sama plays in a game 5 and he picks Draven, you know, like obviously now it's meta, but in past games he'll be like, you know, fuck it, I'm just gonna play it. I know I'm good in it. We're gonna clap these guys.
Yeah. So I'm saying I actually felt like on game 5 they leaned into comfort. And yeah, I think that it's better to lean into comfort than anything. I guess you mean more like they're fine with unorthodox, like the coaching staff seems to sign off on unorthodox picks, but I also just don't see a conversation where comps like saying anything but Caitlyn, you know? Like I like Forgiven used to be like a hero of his because he's like Greek, and also he just main Kate, you know. Even though Forgiven's actual main back in the day was Vayne, by the way, in season 2, and then he off-rolled Jarvan for everything else. But yeah, like I when I saw Caitlyn there, like I had to double check like who was playing, and this is actually Comp's champion.
Yeah,
you know. And I'm glad they. I always think going into comfort and ease of execution is the best game 5 strat. And I thought, like, I also thought Excel's game 5 strat where they just go like Sedge on blah blah blah, like okay, idiot proof everywhere, right? And then they still manage to fuck it up. But it's good to see people have this kind of an idea on how to approach these game 5s.
Yeah,
and.
I mean, it was still even like game 5 was rough at moments for both teams. I remember that there was one point where Larson was in the top lane and he was too far pushed in, and then he got caught out. And Odo Omne, I don't think he TPs, but he ran up there. Or did he TP? I don't remember that, but he went there as well. There was nothing to salvage, and he died as well. You know, like those moments still were very much there, which loops back to how we started the conversation about the series.
Yeah. I remember that TP. Yeah,
I mean, this loops back to the conversation, like the topic we started the conversation in. Like, oh man, that series. I don't know, man. What do we want to say about it? Like, there were good moments from both teams. There were moments where you're like, oh god, please let it stop. Which also that game 5 showed. So
something that was really clear for me was how well Niski plays with jungle, but he does it in like the actives. So you have like Humanoid does it in the sense that he understands which trades to go for with the opponent to diminish their ability to interfere with jungle. He understands what kinds of fake pressure allow you to enable your jungler to make the plays that they need to do. He understands all these kinds of nuances of it. Niski is like fuck all the nuance, and he will just push and roam on like every fucking wave for his jungler's advantage. And Elyoya, I think, just needed another mid laner who plays well with jungle, not a shot caller. I think a bit of reductionism ended up happening on the part of the coaching staff, where what was happening on the map seemed less important than what was happening in comms. And the comms, because, you know, those are the easiest thing to identify, they kind of like took over. And it's like, what you actually just need is someone who's playing the map in a certain way. I have no doubt that Rika was vocal, but the way that Rika played with his jungle was if his jungle was doing something on one side of the map, he would defend the other side, you know? He wasn't playing specifically to enable his jungler. He was like, all right, because he had Akabane before, right? And this guy would just insta-go to like one lane and he would just gank it over and over and over again. And meanwhile, Rika's like making sure his top side's fine while Kadui goes like 50-0 on Tristana or something, right?
Yep.
That's not the same way Humanoid plays to his jungler's side. Niski plays with his jungler on his side, you know? And you really saw that in the early parts of these series. They had really good early games, not just off of the invades, but off of the map movements they got from there, because Niski was a part of every single play.
Yeah.
Ultimately, what lost them the series in Game 5 was they stopped, well, not Mad, but Rogue were able to stop Elyoya getting flank positions, and Niski was not ultimately on a champion where in mid-late game he could help Elyoya get into those positions without sacrificing his team. And that ended up being the big thing that lost them the series. They good control of Elyoya, but like Elyoya Niski, this combo was really what Rogue had to identify and isolate and take down. And in Game 5 they did that.
Yeah. I think if I like now think back on the series, I would say that I was a bit underwhelmed, maybe, or I had expected more from a player like Kaiser. Obviously, when he's on Nami, like, he can't do that much aside from like maybe throwing a good bubble or like a good ult here and there. But it's not obviously a playmaking champion that he loves to play, like a Leona, or even back when she was in meta, like a Rel, you know, where we would find flanks, flash in, ult, and set everything up. I think he had a quieter series than I expected from him, and with him maybe also Unforgiven. I'm more lenient towards like a player like Unforgiven because he's like it's his first year, like it's a best of 5 on the LEC stage. But I think the same could be said on Rogue's side, where I don't think that they as individuals were doing as much as we saw them doing during the regular split. For example, I don't think Odo Amne was as lane dominant. I mean, like, you still beat Odo Amne or Armut in a lane, but I think I would have liked... Yeah. Well, actually, that's an interesting point, because people, and I was also on very much of the opinion, Armut, when playoffs comes around, he's a player who improves in his performance, and in team fights is going to be a crucial player. We saw this on he had when he could play a Gnar or Wukong. But this time around, what was he playing? He played Renekton. He played Cannon. He played another Cannon, and he played a... Hang on. What did he play? Ornn. He played. So that's I guess on the Cannon you have the potential to like flash in ult and win your team the game, but also
saw how that
went. not very well. So yeah, I don't know. I think for both teams on an individual level, I was mostly underwhelmed as well. And obviously in the team play, as we just discussed, it was a fiesta here and there where sometimes one team would show up or step up, and then the other team would punch them down again. It was in the end a very even series. You know,
I can remember 2 specific series where Mad Lions played Rogue in the past, and they won by understanding that Inspired, no longer the jungler here, that Inspired just does not escort waves or gank. Malrong will at least gank and match dives, but Inspired wouldn't even do that. So they ended up realizing, why aren't we just free manning top and playing a complete map? And that's what they did. And those gains and advantages ended up getting attributed to Armut. Because people don't understand how much pressure enemy support being SS and potentially being top already does, even without that guy there. You can't take trades at that point. So if Armut wants to go on you, you just have to accept it. So suddenly trades that would otherwise be bad were suddenly good.
Sure.
This happened twice. And this is why Armut ended up with this legacy of turning up in playoffs, because they got the Rogue matchup twice, and you beat Rogue by attacking top, which was just a one-man show the whole time, which was Odoamne. And Odoamne normally got Giga Praise from regular split, so people started figuring Armut was like insane because he ended up having winning lanes into.
I mean, at the same time,
that's how this illusion happened.
I mean, at the same time, it's undeniable that he had like great and clutch Gnar ults. He had great. He found great ults on Wukong with flanks where he would basically
mostly set up by Kaiser.
Okay.
I will deny this. Like, I've hated this narrative for so fucking long, and I've like my mind. Like, I remember one Gnar game where people were telling me he got so much good flanks and shit on it, and I rewatched it, and he was just getting destroyed on a lot of these flanks, and it was like there was some transplantation going on there. Like, I do somewhat deny it. Just like Armut's kind of like the new Bwipo in this regard, where people either think he's 10th or he's like the best. The reality of Armut was that he's always kind of being on the lower tier. The reality of Bwipo was that he was on like the mid to upper tier, but there was a different jungle situation going on there because Broxer could only play around one side or the other. Armut's kind of like this new version of that, though he has a jungler that can play a complete map and crucially a support that can play a complete map as well. And yeah, so this legend kind of happened there. Now, what happened this time around, and the reason you won't see that now, is Hex Slash was disabled. And because Hex Slash is disabled, Nautilus, Leona, Alistar, all of these kinds of heavy roaming map control champs, Alistar was the defining champ when they reverse swept Rogue and denied Odoamne in the saddest way possible, right? They can't play these kinds of champs now. So you are thinking about playing hard around bot lane in the way you didn't before, which is also why coming into the show, it's like, well, it's undeniable the ADs are really, really good because we're seeing them consistently played around now. And now we can see who really has the big cock. And it mostly seems to be, yeah. And that's great for the ADs, but yes, the top laners as a result will suffer. They don't get the help that they were able to get at some points from some teams because we're going to get Enchanter's bot and we're going to play with that kind of lane advantage, and bot's where the fucking party's at, right? And they just have to get on board with it.
So,
right?
so basically, the Riot development team...
Top lane.
Yeah,
Continue.
So basically the Riot development team, because they are not capable of fixing the Hexflash bug adequately, they are ruining Armut's career.
Unironically, as a result, they have denied Armut praise. Like, as a result, they have specifically denied Armut.
Are you happy now, developers? Is this what you wanted? I guess so. Otherwise, they would fix it by now. They have it out for him. You can see it.
You're seeing this issue in EU Masters as well. Like, there are so many teams where I know that the best shit for them is to play hard around topside, and they just can't do it now because they have to be picking fucking Yumi and shit. That's the world we live in now. Yeah. And it's this will damage Mad Lion's form because they were so dependent on Kaiser. And when I saw how it looked like, it was like, I really don't want this team to go to Worlds. I need this team to prove to me before they go to Worlds. I think
everybody is saying let them at least win a fucking best of 5, because
exactly.
it would be so terrible for this team to go like 12-8 and 1 split and make Worlds based on that. Like, come on.
Oh yeah, I'm rooting for them. Whoever they face in their best of 5, I'm rooting for them.
Yeah, it's gonna be Fnatic or Misfits.
That guy. Yeah. They can't deny that guy Worlds, but I need to know they can beat one of these teams.
Exactly.
Otherwise, I hate the fact that we got 4 seeds because we insta-sent them, and there's potentially a world where Misfits and Fnatic are both better than them. That world potentially exists, at least in terms of results. Like, Misfits' mid-game map play was so good. Alright? It was so fucking good. It was the best shit I've seen. And XL's map play was nuts, and they lost, and I hate it. And Mad Lions went through, and they sucked, man. Whatever.
I mean, yeah, I think for me the thing is that like Mad Lions would go to the play-ins, if they lose, which is where we'll have I think 5 teams of major regions, because is that right? I think so, because we have the LCS team, 2 LEC teams, an LPL team, and an LCK team in there. So there's 1 major region play-in team that's not going to make it out there, which is probably going to be between the LEC team and the LCS team.
Give a random Asian regions and the complete joke we still refer to as NA. Alright? Yeah. I don't care. We'll take all of them on at the same time. Let's go. Mad Lions at their worst will piss all over Genji. Alright? Yeah. Let's fucking go.
Yeah, we saw how that went in 2020, right? That went well. It's a different team. But I think for me, this whole thing, like, if you're one of those idiots who's harassing the Mad Lions players or coaching staff or team, like, with this, like, don't be an idiot. It's not their fault that this is how it works. They're just playing League. They're playing in the system, and it's not their fault that the system... I agree.
Harass Riot.
Yeah. No, well, we have a new commissioner now, Artem Bykov, I think.
The last one could not survive interviews with you.
Yeah, I'm gonna see how quick.
Maybe interview this one. Well, we could get you in Worlds.
Oh my god, it's probably gonna take a while for him to accept interviews in the first place, and probably even longer for him to accept an interview with me. And then if
badge of honor.
I don't know, man. I would rather that they just step up and own up to yeah. But whatever. I do think, like, one narrative that I also saw on Twitter, which was, like, obviously the LEC awards were a big topic of debate this time around. Mad Lions ended up getting 2 MVPs. Niski in first place. I guess that's the MVP. And Elyoya in second place. Niski was the undisputed winner there. Elyoya was much closer to a few other people there in the votes. So first of all, I'd like to reiterate, one player winning by a large margin doesn't mean this player was that much better than the player below him. You know, if one player performs at a 9 and the other player performs at a 7, the player that performs at a 9 is going to get all the number 1 votes, so 3 points, and then the number 7 is going to get more split votes, but it doesn't mean he was that much better. It's just how the system works, is that the points are going to be much more skewed towards the player who was just clearly better. So I don't agree with that narrative. I've seen like a bunch of people on Twitter said, like, also with a lot of followers, you know, like these random accounts that say like, oh lol, apparently Niski was like 9 times better or something. Like, that's not how it works. Come on, you have to use your brain a little bit. But I will say, based on the voting, which was very scattered, Mad Lions had 4 or 5 All-Pro, 2 MVP players, coaching staff of the split, and then they got killed by Rogue, who Larsen wasn't even in there. I think Odo was in one of the All-Pro teams. Comp, I recall seeing in there, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Comp was in AD.
Yeah.
Odo was in. Did Trimby manage to? Yeah, Trimby managed to get in, I think.
Yeah. So, you know, like, and obviously there's a difference between winning regular splits, All-Pro team, and all these awards and showing up for playoffs. We've seen all the teams, but it was an interesting discussion that was going on there. I'll say that much. Where like, yeah, they got all these awards, and they got.
I still think these awards were some of the best Europe's done, though, because like my issue was mostly the order, and I also had an issue with like 4 Mad Lions players being up there.
Yeah.
But like at least most of the people on the top 3 deserve to be on the top 3. You know. So fuck it, like baby steps, all right. And the next time, don't pick the worst team to be your sole representative in number 1 everywhere. That might be the best. But Jesus, man, it was so cringe, actually.
Yeah, I don't know. It was I mean, I could feel it coming. Like when I saw Rogue was gonna win Game 5, I was like, oh no, people are gonna talk about the LEC awards again. I could see it coming. I could see it, but whatever. It's all gonna be forgotten about. Well, actually, if Mad Lions doesn't end up winning a single best of 5, then it will probably flare up again.
Oh god, yeah. Oh god, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
But then if they go to Worlds and they suddenly like beat Korean and Chinese teams, I'm gonna pop off on Twitter about it.
Just reposting that image. Yeah.
Fucking BDS would beat them in a BO5 at this point, alright? But fucking Genji just got 3-0 obliterated. Niski went 26-0 and 40. Like, what the fuck?
Dude, Niski is clearly a better player than Chovy. Come on, man. How can we not see this? Niski is the actual EU Chovy.
Facts, though, by the way. All right. Our EU Chovy is VTO, and did he qualify for Worlds before Niski? No. So Niski is clearly better than Chovy, because EU Chovy can only be an upgrade over Korean Chovy. So
it's true.
Clearly.
Yeah. I mean, with Matt already in, like I just I think I said it on the last show as well. I just hope for the guys on the Misfits roster that they make Worlds, because it gives them so much experience. It's such a big free bootcamp, basically. You know.
I something I love about Worlds is like with EUM, I'm still like deadly serious, right? I love EUM. I probably love EUM more than Worlds. But I'm still deadly serious. With Worlds, I'm just a fucking fan. Like, I don't care. Like, I'll be like, here's like your serious prediction. Now I'm going to spend the whole fucking time rooting for the EU team I just said is going to lose. Alright? I don't give a shit.
That's the thing. Right? Okay, so obviously, like
the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, as a journalist, I try to be very objective in when I write articles and I provide my coverage. But when international tournaments go around, like, I will cheer when the EU team wins. But you know, if they play like shit, I'll also say they play like shit. You know, like that's. But them playing like shit's still fucking better than what we got out of like. I mean, I'll trash talk. You know, when EU was 8-0 against or like G2 was 8-0 against EG in the group stage. Of course, you know, like that's the banter. That's fine. You know, like, but obviously I have to stay away from like letting that go through in my actual work. So it's fine. You know, like that's what's so fun about these international events. Like, I know you're not really a big football guy, but that's also like. when football happens, you know, now football does have more morons than esports when it comes to showing their fandom.
We already have fan bases in esports calling themselves ultras. We're getting there.
Yeah, we are
shit.
getting there. We are getting there, but so far we aren't. But I mean, like, if the Netherlands play against Germany, you know, it's a very big rivalry because of some event that happened 75 years ago. But it's all in good. It's mostly in good faith now. You know, there's a bunch of morons who take it too far, but we all be like we're yelling at each other and bantering, and you know, it's good fun. And I think that's the same for Worlds in that regard, where you're like, yeah, you know, you screw you, NA. But then in the end, we were both getting clapped by China and Korea. So we were both there sitting.
We were not getting clapped by China. All right. When Korean domination ended, it was China v EU all the way, baby. All right.
True. 2018 and 2019 were good years.
Even before that, when the Koreans were dominating, we actually had a winning record against China for the vast majority of it.
China was still asleep. Now they're
especially from like MSI stuff as well, because like we kept beating them like semis of MSI and shit like this. Like we got to finals of MSI a lot before. Like I remember when the Korean Exodus happened, and China won that one MSI and got cocky. We obliterated them every quarterfinals that we met China after that. Until the reverse Exodus, and then China starts doing well again, and then we still fucking the worst G2 lineup ever beat RNG in their best fucking year of all time, get absolutely completely fucked, by the way. Alright, like we have been China's bane a long ass time. We're just not able to be their bane if it's a final.
Yeah.
And that sucks.
Yeah. That hurts, man. Yeah.
I've hated the whole like idea of. I mean, I think the idea of the West in general is garbage, but the idea of like the West in esports is. I was going to say especially egregious, but I think there's no way I can say that what I just compared it to. But it's definitely crazily egregious in esports because you cannot compare our level of competition against the Asian regions with North America's. It's not even vaguely on the same level, right? Like, we've always been competitive with them. We used to be the Korean killer region. We used to be the guys that wiped China all the fucking time. We've just never been able to do it in the finals. We've never gotten that final hurdle. But to act as if we are anywhere near as far away as North America, it's just ahistorical. It's revisionist. It's not true.
Well, I will say, at MSI 2019, Team Liquid did EU a courtesy of beating IG, if I recall very correctly.
And Cloud9 beat one of the Samsung teams, I think it was, in 2018 quarterfinals 3-0.
That's before I started watching League, so I probably have seen the series, but I like the tournament.
And then both times they got instantly obliterated by Europe. Just to again remind people, it's not even close. Like, they get lucky. We don't. We just stomp the shit out of them. And then we get unlucky at the final.
I had this, I think it was at the start of the summer split. When I was still working at Invent, like we were doing like this power rankings, international power ranking, or like we had West and East separated, as much as obviously China and Korea also have very much their own identity. It's just easier, you know, and there is just a gap. It's just there. So, we were having a conversation about power rankings for West and East, and we were talking about West. And a good friend of mine, Nick Geraci, we were talking about EG, where should they land? And I said, well, at that point, you know, before any summer matches were played, I said, well, I think Rogue would win against EG pretty easily. And he said, really, I think that's outrageous. And look where we are now, where EG might not even make Worlds. Because they choked the hell out of their series, and Rogue is already there, baby. Because he said, "I want to see this best of 5 so badly." I do too. But your team, where is it, Nick? I love you, brother. If you ever see this, probably not. But
North America in the best of 5. That's already a laugh, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, they barely even see the BO5 stages.
They made it last year with, and they were kind of.
They made it with Cloud9
right?
last year.
Yeah.
Cloud9 are always the team, by the way.
Like,
if ever a team makes it out, it's Cloud. But I have to say, sometimes the Earth has moved to let them do that. Like, holy shit, man.
I mean,
like
FPX crumbling at Worlds last year. Something nobody expected.
2017 Worlds, I was there when Clearlove put on the single greatest carry performances of his entire career, and they still managed to lose a completely unlosable final game, and that sent Cloud9 into the upper group. It was the wildest thing I've ever seen in my fucking life.
Yeah.
Like there was so much dumb shit happens, but Cloud9 make it like they've made a deal with the devil. Alright? They've made a genuine supernatural deal with the fucking devil. If they're at Worlds, they're the only NA team I will genuinely bet on making it to like the next bracket. No matter like if some hype team is there, they collapse. I don't care who it is. They just somehow they collapse. I don't know how, but they will. It's so disturbing actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't talk about Europe like that. When Europe doesn't make it to the next stage, it's a complete failure.
Mm-hmm.
Like for us, it's a complete failure. For NA, it's just another tournament.
I mean, yeah,
like,
for
we're
us,
not vaguely on the same
I do
level.
remember at 2019, obviously it was a very positive surprise that all three teams made it out of the group. Splice, G2, and Fnatic made through. Especially Splice, I guess. Few people would have expected them to make it that far, and they actually did pretty well against SKT. Was still back then, I think, in the quarters. They actually did pretty well. But yeah, last year was obviously a disappointment with only Mad Lions making it out, you know, and barely by by the skin of their teeth they made it out.
It was our worst since 2014. It was our worst showing at World since 2014.
Yep.
And it still looks like one of NA's best. So like I always hated that homogeny was like there, you know.
Still, if I look at the competition of EU this year, still I'm like, I know you don't watch China.
We're getting worse, yeah, for sure we're getting worse.
It is getting worse. So that is very disappointing. Well, very worrying actually. Maybe we'll see some changes to the LEC in the future that will allow us to be a bit more competitive.
I mean, I like the way G2 plays. If Misfits figure out these things like Baron setups, like they can have a very focused set of sessions this week in scrims.
Mm-hmm.
If they figure out Baron setups, I actually think they can do well once you get to playoff stages at Worlds. They need to get a good BO1 bracket, but in BO5 stages, I think they can do well. They remind me a lot of the Fnatic lineup that almost beat Top Esports.
Oh yeah,
if you remember.
That was a great series. They got reverse swept, you know, but
with Nemesis just completely sprinting the whole time, I don't think VTO will sprint like that. But the way that Fnatic were winning those games
was a great series from Reckless and Hissing as well. Unbelievable. Yes. They were playing out of their mind.
Misfits can pull that off. Misfits can actually pull that off, and I don't think they have. If they figure out those aspects, I think they can pull off in the same manner.
I'm gonna be very honest with you. There are quite a few hurdles I see for Misfits. Well, for example, Riot can change the meta where it's more top heavy. You know, if the ADC becomes less relevant at Worlds, then Misfits is screwed. You know, because Neon is their player, and if they cannot play around him, what are they gonna do? And also, I think Zanzara is going to get completely out-jungled by the contemporaries in his group. Because if Misfits, assume Misfits go through play-ins, then make from play-ins to the group stage, they'll be with like an LCK 1-2-3 seed, an LPL 1-2-3 seed, and they will, I mean, some random region like NA, you know, like.
I fully agree. I fully agree. Zanzara will get out-jungled, but these guys know how to play with that because that happens anyway. Like that's not really any different from
but I mean, it's I don't think, aside from Jankos, I think, who's very good at punishing junglers, I don't think current EU junglers are at that level.
Yoy and Niski are really, really good at doing it. And Razor's really good at doing it. So if they get through Fnatic to make it to Worlds, then they can get through junglers that can do it.
Maybe.
That I mean, like, definitely Zanzara is the one who probably has the biggest individual improvement, but I think if they get those balance setups, etc., I think when it comes to a playoff BO5 I think the fact that these guys can still get tempo in mid game no matter what, that will be a huge advantage in the marathon that is those kinds of best of fives. I don't think these guys, like the same way that these guys were like mind blown by Hans Sammer, I think they'll also be quite mind blown by the shit that Neon pulls off in the
yeah. I mean, Neon is gonna be would be an incredible player to have at Worlds, obviously to show what he can do. Yeah, and then in best of fives, you know, assuming they make like second out of their group, so they'll probably play an LCK first seed or an LPL first seed. That's gonna be fun. That's gonna be fun.
And like that top esports one again, like normally Europe gets carried by their mid laners. Our mid laner was like running that whole series down, and still TES, like we almost knocked top esports was so fucking well respected at that point. We still almost knocked them out.
Yeah, they were touted to be favorites together with Dumb One. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I ended up against the favorites back in 2016 when EDG were the favorites. We gave them their first losses. That whole split. They had no losing records against anyone until they came up against us. We have very sober ways of viewing these kinds of teams in ways that North American teams just don't. Like,
I'm just thinking back about that Fnatic top esports series. I was watching it in my home with a friend on the TV, and they were like 2-0 up, and we were like high, you know, like everybody in EU was so high. We're like, no fucking way they're gonna 3-0 top esports, let's go! And then it completely fell apart. It was so heartbreaking, man. After that first loss, I told my friends they're gonna crumble now, and they completely,
That shit was Young Buck's crowning achievement, man. It really was, because the way that he got certain players to play there was so against how they would normally play, but this was the only way they could win. And it was so good the way that he got them to play there. Like, he had authority there, but that's such a gamble. I respect it so much, because when you do that, those players ain't gonna like you afterwards. And it's quite clear from interviews, some of them didn't. But that was the best chance they had. I think it's proven by how that series went that was the best shot that they had for it.
Yeah.
And fully fucking respect him for that. And you saw some of those systems at play in the Fnatic XL games, and it was so heartbreaking to me that they lost. Because they were so good at understanding when to trade Drakes for towers and when they actually wanted to team fight. But then the Yuumi is stuck on Ari for some reason, you know? And it's like, how am I supposed to VOD review this? Be on him.
Yeah.
Done. What can I do at this point, you know?
They would have played against Sooting next. Oh, man. Yeah, what could have been, right?
You're thinking about that shit still, man. It's dude. If you're dude, I have to think about the fucking Kaboom game, all right? When I think about Europe, so like I go right the fuck back, man. Do you know that Kaboom game was so traumatizing to me that off of the back of the Kaboom game, I started applying to be an analyst to teams. I literally did that because of the Kaboom game.
You're like, this is unacceptable.
In 2016 Worlds, okay? In 2016 Worlds, we were 1-2 down going into the second week. We had one of the favourites in our group, right? Which was EDG, right? And we got the win against EDG. And we make it out if we beat the Brazilian team. It was the same fucking shit. I remember Odo, like, I was thinking it the whole time. Then Odo was the one who finally said it out loud, you know? And it's like, I don't want to hear that. Like, it was so insane, actually. Like, no joke on that one.
I mean, obviously, I wasn't around then, but like I've in doing like years of esports coverage and like transitioning to League, you know, like I've watched back so many World Series and stuff like this, and I can't live the sentiment in the moment, but you can still see like, this is not a good this is not a good moment.
That atmosphere at the time, because it was like Alliance were our hope. Yeah. And the other teams were fucked. They were out, right? Yeah. And Alliance, we all thought could go all the way. And then when I went to World in 2016, G2 just completely collapsed. And they were gone, you know? And Splice were fucked, right? And we were the only ones left again. And it was like the fucking Brazilian team. It's like the script writers just always get lazy. Yeah. Like, they're getting lazy again here. Like, Fnatic are about to do a fucking lower bracket run after a giga-close first series. Where if they just stomp, like, it's entirely possible. Like, I see this as a very likely scenario. They just stomp Misfits, stomp Mad, who have looked like shit, and make it into Worlds really easily that way, right? If they fucking do that shit, I'm gonna sit here thinking XL easy make it to Worlds. if they play game 3 slightly differently.
Yep.
They just sweep the whole thing. Because that Vitality lineup you referenced at the start of the show, they were so close to doing it. Leader was
exactly.
1v9ing. And but with how the rest of the games went, they just go worlds.
Yep.
If they beat Fnatic there, they just go worlds. Yep. There's no question.
Exactly. Yeah, people forget this, but you know, like the Vitality lineup of 2020 Summer
Split, Crown Shot.
Yeah. Self-made, obviously.
Yeah.
And Labrov was there. Was an insanely good split from him as well. Like that lineup was so close to Fnatic in that best of 5. And if you look at how the bracket was, like they were really close to actually making Worlds. Oh man.
They make it. If they beat Fnatic, they make it, man. It was so painful. And it, like, people's remembrance of Leader would be so different. I feel people have just forgotten how hard Leader was carrying that series as well. He was stomping the shit out of Fnatic.
He was doing that very well. Yeah.
It's so sad. Like, Crown Shot also got kind of fucked off of that. Like, it was so, like, there are so many good names there that will just still be here. A couple of things go a bit differently. The biggest thing, like, is not even in game. Like, if they just stuck with either SLT or Sagenda, they make it in. You know, stick with either of them. Don't do all of this weird swaps that they were doing. These guys are at Worlds. You know, like I feel so bad for them. Cause
I mean, honestly, I didn't get like this is like a huge tangent of what we're originally gonna discuss, but it's fine.
Yeah, it's all related.
It's all related. Love. Yeah, we're all it's all connected. You know, like we see the lines. It's
we're vibing.
Yeah, we're vibing, you know? Exactly. But I remember back then, like, I was so surprised that Sagenda got subbed out there because I thought he was performing fine. Like, not great, but it was fine, you know? Like, I don't think anything that was going wrong was his fault, but yeah. Man, if actually... I mean, I guess it's better for XL if Fnatic gets shit stomped by Misfits, like, upcoming weekend, because then they're like, okay, you know, we probably wouldn't have made Worlds anyway. And then, like, some consolation.
So, like, okay, if this was happening to me, is what would happen, right? I'd spend the whole week trying to get over it, right?
Yes.
I'd chill with my girlfriend or something, right? I'd get over it. I'd finally be, like, somewhat fine, right? But then, if fucking Fnatic just stomped Misfits to go to Worlds, right? It would bring it all the fuck back. Because it's not just I lost to Fnatic, it's like... I could have been at fucking Worlds right now?
Yeah.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
It wasn't even close if we closed game 3. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Like, that would all pop off in my head and I'd be right the fuck back. Like, I would not be recovering again for, like, at least another week from this shit. If they keep winning, it would get worse and worse, you know? Like, yeah, you don't want them to win. If you're XL and you value your mental, you want fucking Misfits to just stomp them. And then it's all fine, you know?
Yep.
You're free. You're free as a bird, you know? You're released from
I mean,
the
at the same time, like, of course, that sentiment's gonna linger, but at the same time, you know, like, from an outsider, as an outsider also, like, yeah, man, if you wanted to have been at Worlds, you just should have been better during the regular season.
Thanks. I didn't fucking consider that great. Yeah. Fantastic.
No, but right? I mean, like, no, but
that's the reaction that you have in your head when someone says that to you. You know. That's what I'm trying to articulate there. You know.
But because they're obviously gonna have like those feelings of like, oh man, it could have been me who was going to Worlds, you know. Yeah. But at the same time, like, yeah, you know, like you can be angry at everything, but in the end, it's you. You know, in the end, it's all you. So.
In the end, no. In the end, why the fuck did my management trade Sagenda for SLT? Yeah, that's all me. Great. What the fuck am I supposed to do?
I was talking about XL.
To go shove it. With XL, great. I'm definitely the one controlling Yuumi in this situation. Oh, fucking wait, I'm not. What the fuck am I supposed to do there?
God.
Like, nah.
I mean,
there are so many ways it's bullshit to throw it on any individual person. It's always quite bullshit. And if you ever say that to them, I think they're justified when they punch you in the fucking face.
No, but I mean,
so disturbing.
You as in the team, you know, like you should have, like you had 8 weeks to win more games as a team, and you didn't. Like, it's not. I'm not gonna say like if
that's just a statement of fact. Like, yeah, like the team didn't play well enough. That's true.
You didn't play well enough, so I understand the sentiment where you're like, man, it could have been me, but at the same moment, like, look back at how you as a team performed this split. Like, in the end, you didn't deserve it.
It's something that people might not get, actually. Like, one of the worst things that I hated seeing, that I fucking like insta trigger point. And this is a trigger point for so many people, by the way. And I don't think unless you've been in a super competitive environment that you realize this. When people say you'll get it next year, you just want to kill them.
That's terrible. Why would you say that?
Like, even, like, but this is, like, so much, like, I remember, oh my god, one of the worst cases of it that lingered in my head was when Rox Tigers lost the BO5 with, like, the Ash Hour and all of that shit to SKT. And people were saying to them, you'll get it next year, right? And I was just sat there thinking, because everyone fucking knew, right? There's no way this team even gets to stick together. This was their only shot.
Exactly.
And when you say, you know, next year's your year, right? They're all thinking, there's no way to know this. You're just reminding me I'm fucked.
Yes.
Exactly. Like, what? It's always so, like, that's so, I mean, like, because it's like, great, I need to do a whole year again, and it might not matter again.
That's
like,
the whole
at
thing.
That point,
like, I remember, because I was in Paris for the World's 2019 finals, G2, where they got railed, you know, like, nobody, I don't think anybody said you'll get it next year, but obviously everybody's thinking, like, okay, but what about next year? But you could just see, like, all the G2 players that they realized, this was our shot, you know, like,
this was it,
This was the moment.
I definitely saw people being like, nope, next year's G2's year and shit like this. I definitely saw
like,
that.
listen, it's a testament to how insanely good that lineup was, that they stuck together.
Yeah.
Their 2020 was objectively a much worse year, and they still got to semifinals. Like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Like, how good was that lineup? But obviously, like, it was 2019. It was supposed to happen. Yeah.
Something figured out that year, and there's no guarantee that you'll figure it out next year. Because when you figure these things out, and here's the thing, you are aware of this when you're like, these guys aren't delusional about it. A lot of you guys figuring this thing out as a team that puts you above everyone is circumstance, you know?
Yes.
And that's not necessarily going to be the case next year. Like, next year you could still do well, sure, but the thing that gave someone like G2, like, such a huge leg up, a lot of that came about because of circumstance, and you can't just recreate that all the time, and there's so much RNG, and at that point, when you are at the end of the journey, when you've lost at the end of that climb, you've fallen off a fucking cliff, and right now you're looking up and seeing the whole fucking mountain, and now you are aware that when you climb all the way up that fucking mountain after a year, you might just fall off a fucking cliff again.
Yep.
And that's all you see, because that's all you feel there. And when people say this shit, like, that's all you see.
Not only that, but it's like, it's a completely different mountain. You know, like, it's like with different hurdles. You could just slip up at completely different moments, and it's like you're back to where you started. It's
There were so many points on the last mountain where you're just lucky, and you're aware of that, you know? And it's like, you have any idea? Like, I worked hard. Do you have any fucking idea? Like, here, I could have been fucked. Here, I could have been fucked. Here, I could have been completely fucked. Yeah. Alright? Like, this guy plays World of Warcraft. Do you think, like, that's gonna survive next year? Like, come on, man. Like, nah. There are so many things you see that way, and it's like, it's one of those things where, like, I remember having an argument with someone in 2019 about this when I saw people saying this shit, right? I remember having an argument with them, and it's like, no, believe me, you want to off yourself when you see that, because it's just a reminder that it's probably not your year next year, and that this was it, and it's just always reinforcing.
You know, and it's different. It's different for like the lower thresholds. You know, like if a team doesn't make playoffs, you can say like, oh, you know, like you can get a next split or whatever, because like there's much less, I guess, randomness or something that can influence that. So it's fine there, but if you're so close to touching the gold, you know, and then you get thrown down all the way, like into the pit, and people said like, "Oh, don't worry, you were very close," you know, like try again, and you're lying there with broken bones and a shattered skull, and you're like, "Thanks, buddy," you know, like.
That's why I think like CS, the like stuff like the CS scene is just so much better for players' mental health, right? This is definitely something I don't think I've seen discussed too much, but like. Obviously, we discuss a lot the amount of time one has to put into League of Legends because of the way that seasons are run. Yep. But like this whole feeling of that mountain and everything we've been talking about here doesn't really exist if a tournament lasts for 3 weeks and then another tournament's happening next month, right? It doesn't exist to anywhere near the same effect because each mountain lasts those 3 weeks, right? And you want to get as many points as you can, blah, 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 but you are constantly resetting and constantly getting your expectations in check. And you have so many more chances in that regard because it's not as defined a season as in League of Legends. Where in League of Legends, these teams that lose here, like half the fucking year is left.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly.
Like,
there's so many off weeks. It's unbelievable how many off weeks. And that's something we discussed last show as well, when it was just after playoffs, after the regular split, was like, I mean, for some teams, for 4 teams, the year's all completely over, and for I guess BDS, SK, and Astralis, they had 16 weeks of competition, which amounted to, you know, like that's it in a 52-week year, which is insane. So, I mean, and well,
like, imagine you do the extra half a year, right? And you just lose.
Yeah.
You know, like, and it's like, because it's that whole period all leads to one set of eliminations, row after row after row, right? Like, and because of this, like, because you spend half the year climbing for this point, sometimes just insta over. Sometimes you get all the way to the end and then it's over. The next time you see it, you see this whole half year that just ends up getting defined in like 5 games. And in other games where tournaments happen every month or every other month or so, you don't visualize this kind of a thing, and it cannot be anywhere near as much of a negative drain.
I'm gonna breach a topic similar, like related to this. What we can do is, when teams get eliminated from the LEC regular split, you feed them, or you seed them somewhere into an EU Masters bracket where they can compete with ERL teams, so they can keep the competition high. Now, obviously, that this might be a terrible thing for some of the teams if they get obliterated by an ERL team, but...
Well, I think it's terrible for the ERL teams that's going to get obliterated by LEC teams every time. I mean, EU Masters just becomes...
You think?
Yeah.
You think... Because I think... we saw, like, wasn't it last year that G2 said, "Oh, we are scrimming K Corp as well because they were so good. They were good enough to scrim."
Dude, I think anyone's gonna say stuff like that about K Corp if they want good social media interactions.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Obviously, the K Corp thing it's a cloud, but
wait, are you serious?
No. Yeah. But I mean, like, would they just say it for saying its sake if there's no truth to it? But but I think. I don't know. It could be interesting to explore something where you have some kind of cup format where it's more of a hybrid, or where you give at least the teams that suck, they can also keep playing a bit, because now, like, these teams are back to playing solo queue from now until the start of December.
Yeah, I mean, I think breaks are actually really good for players, because I think just having half your fucking year straight be 12-hour-a-day League of Legends is so bad for these guys' growth as human beings.
Sure, they have a month between spring and summer.
When it comes to it's 1 month between spring and summer. You can't just not do anything for that month where you're going to suck in summer.
No, so of course, right? But they have a break there, and obviously they do play a lot during the regular split. I know that as well. So, but at the same time, having a half year of competition and then a half year of nothing, or not even a half year of competition and then more than a half year of nothing is terrible.
I mean, you're no longer getting to the World Championships. You force them to play these games. I don't think it's that much of a guarantee that they practice. I think a lot of them would throw the tournament. You already see that with some attempts. With some attempts to do things like this, teams just didn't really prep for them. I think like some show matches and stuff could be good. What I would like instead would be just that you keep having open tournaments at similar times. But Riot would never allow that.
No, of course, because they would compete with their circuit. So.
And the current big issue for me is the teams that do go to Worlds, they get very, very little time off, right? Overall. The teams that are consistently going to Worlds, they get fuck all time off.
Yep.
These guys are not able to develop whatsoever. So I'm not sure, like, throwing more stuff on the current players, is it? Like, I just don't like the whole league structure, to be honest. It stunts these guys' developments, and you can see that when these guys start to comment
first
on
of
anything
all,
that isn't
the league should shift to where like the break happens during summer, like for every normal human being. But obviously,
True.
like
True.
obviously we are kind of ignoring that there is a southern hemisphere where currently it does work that way. So I'm sorry to you guys, but you know, like 75% of the population lives above the equator, so you know it's
true.
Or like 80, whatever.
The Australians even have their own server anymore. Who cares? You know.
Riot clearly doesn't, so you know.
Facts.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean the league year overall, it is a weird one. Like for me as a journalist, it's fine because I have for most of the year I can do stuff, right? I can from January when the competition starts until the end of Worlds have something to do, and then the off season starts. So even then I have coverage. It's basically December where it's mostly off, but because then the lineups are known and teams are just scrimming or whatever. They're doing all of it.
You're also doing more of like a 9 to 5. You're probably doing less than a 9 to 5, and you're not living with 4 other kids the whole fucking time, removed from your families, removed from your loved ones, completely unable to be in a circumstance where you can actually live a life with them. You don't get to go and just go drinking with mates after every day or something like this. Like you can't have a life while you do this.
Yep.
And because of the league format, you can't. I love tournament formats, hate league formats because of this.
Yeah.
I think having like the 3 weeks of competition, couple of weeks off, then we're practicing for the next tournament, have the tournament, weeks off, blah blah blah. I think that's great. That's why CS players are still playing at like 30 plus years old, even though CS theoretically.
Well, I will say CS is also a grind for many teams. Like they fly all over the world in the span of a month, which is like fucks up their sleep schedule immensely. They constantly have to be on like that. You can make basically you have no breathing time. It's just like okay. Basically, you get punched down if you are eliminated from a tournament, and you're told to get back up immediately, you know? And it's also a big stamina test, so it is definitely not perfect. But it's obviously...
Oh yeah, I'm not going to portray it as perfect. It has its own issues, but because of all of the breathing time you have between them, at least they can recover from these. Whereas League is a monumental marathon.
There's not much breathing time between CS tournaments, man. Like they have...
More than in League.
Well, like the teams that don't make MSI have more breathing time between spring and summer than CS teams have between their tournaments.
Yeah, that's... obviously they don't, but that's literally one time a year. And then you have the next off-season and that's it.
Well, the off-season for these teams can be like 5 months, so it's quite a lot of time.
It can be, but again, I don't think we should be viewing the problem through those particular teams.
Yeah,
because the teams that do well get heavily punished for doing well.
Of course, we saw it with Mad Lions, right? They were cited like we completely burned out, and we just need to.
Not this one, not this one.
Yeah,
but yes, go on.
Absolutely. I will stick to that one. But
no, they have the same record. Go on.
I can only
judge them. Better record. They had a better record.
They did have a better record.
Excuse for a problem that didn't exist.
Dude, how can you say that? Like, if they're saying we're not scripted, no, they're saying we are exhausted from the league schedule.
Yes.
From what we had to do. So at the start of spring or the start of summer, we are not even scrimming. The guys are not playing solo queue. Now.
They were giving these as reasons why they weren't outright first. But they weren't outright first when they were doing super well anyway.
But
they were using this as an excuse for a problem that didn't exist. That's what I hated about it.
No, because they were saying before the split started, you know, we're gonna take it easier. We're gonna not like put it all cards on the table from the get-go, and then we'll ramp up later on. Now, I'm not saying that, you know, like obviously the narrative got blown way out of proportion to what it probably was in terms of, you know, these guys are still super competitive guys. They want to win, so when the game is on, they're gonna play, and they're probably like in the second week they're already picking it up more again. But at the same time, like is there not a chance that by taking this break they actually were able to perform better because they were allowing themselves more mental rest?
That's true, but what they were actually saying was that their regular split was not looking as good as normal because of this. That's what they were saying. G2 say all the time as well when they go to MSI that they are taking things a lot easier in summer, but they never try to claim retroactively that they are normally big regular split. Well, in fact, they are actually good regular split performers. But Mad Lions were trying to claim retroactively that they were typically good regular split performers when 3 out of 4 regular splits, they were mid-tier at that point, including the one that they had just had. That was my issue with that whole thing. I actually sent that in a tweet to you at the time. I went over the regular splits that they'd already had at that point, and 3 or 4 of them they were actually mid-tier, including the one that they just had, which is that's why I didn't like about it. Like, I agree, they need to have a rest because MSI is a fucking marathon. Mm-hmm. I will never dispute that. I just hated the fact that they were trying to say that they were performing worse in regular split because of it, when in fact they were actually.
No, I'm not saying they were performing better. Like if
no,
you look
they
at
were. That was my issue, and we were arguing about that back then.
All right, but I thought we were arguing about them saying that they were on a break, and you thought they were not taking a break. But I think they were taking a break, like very clearly. Like they said, they're not scrimming. Like we're not doing scrims with teams at the start of Summer Split. But anyway.
No, but yeah, but I mean, I was never arguing that on Twitter.
Yeah,
so I don't know.
Yeah,
like, I even sent you like the records that they had. And my argument was that actually they're overperforming in regular split, whereas they're retroactively trying, because people were trotting this out, including them, as a reason why they aren't outright first in regular split, and that was just a historical. They are normally not outright first in regular split. It was at that point an aberration for them to do well in regular split.
Yeah, they were very close with Rogue. That split was very exciting.
Yeah,
but right, is it what should we discuss actually?
I mean, we can end whenever. Like, I don't mind. Yeah. Like, this has been a really good episode, I think. Like, I like it when more or less just like we went so in deep into so much history and stuff. I love it, actually.
Yeah, I mean, it's been like, I think 1 hour, maybe a bit less of LEC playoffs talk, and then the other 50 minutes just about random LEC or League of Legends World's history stuff. I don't mind, actually. If you do mind, well, you should have stopped watching after 1 hour.
For sure.
I'll put timestamps in it again, so you know what we're gonna talk about. Other than that, yeah, I don't know. Maybe a little preview of what we're gonna see. Is that something you wanted? We have G2 Rogue.
I can't. Oh wow. Well, I think G2 will just win against Rogue. I'd be very surprised if not. I think Fnatic just beat Misfits, which I hate.
They have the plot armor, man.
I mean, they have the stylistic matchup as well. Like, they contest mid jungle super fucking hard. If they play like they did in the last 2 games against XL, then they'll just win off of it.
Yeah,
they'll just win off of it straight up. Which
I mean, with Misfits' avenue is Neon, right? That's like their way.
Yeah, but like if they just drop the map like they did to G2 first game every time, then it's gonna be a hard one. Like, there's a world where Misfits win for sure. This isn't like a definite. I mean, I don't know. In my head, it feels like definite that Fnatic
really. Because
yeah.
I think for me, like, this is a team where we've seen like they go on win streaks and loss streaks, Fnatic, and now they're obviously on a high after that victory. You know, they're gonna be like so hyped. Everybody would be, justifiably so. Like, you did amazing. Like, this amazing recovery you did. So that's what makes me a bit more worried about them. Where Misfits got their asses handed to them by G2 in the series, which I don't think you should necessarily blame yourself too much for. Like, if Caps is gonna play like this, like, okay, you know, like, fuck it, we'll take the next one.
Zanzaro will be the interesting one to see how he recovers from that.
No. Agreed.
But I think it's just so. I just stylistically, I feel like it's Fnatic favours. Hopefully, I'm wrong, because I would love to see Misfits at Worlds. But I feel like Fnatic will just win.
Yeah, I don't know. It's too flippy for me, because if Fnatic, like, for example, if Misfits win game 1, I could also see Fnatic crumbling again, you know? Like, just a mental booming.
They can win game 1, 2, and be Astro stomping game 3, and apparently
and it's still
Fnatic will just win. So, I'm not sure about that angle, you know?
Fnatic
like,
apparently has to go to Worlds. I guess that's the thing. Do we want to do Best in the West still? Best player of the past weekend?
Caps put on the best performance the past weekend. IMO, and G2 were the best team last weekend. Definitely not Rogue or Mad. No. You watched Rogue just randomly stomp G2, now that I've said that, by the way. You just watched them just come out of nowhere and just obliterate the fuck out of them.
Because I thought Mad was going to win heading into the series as well, because I thought...
I actually did too.
Yeah, because I think, I mean, the Niski Elyoya duo is going to shut out Malrun completely. They're going to disable Larson doing anything. In the top lane, probably Odo favored, but bot lane, relatively even, I thought. But I thought the mid-jungle duo would just be so strong. I guess in the end, Mad's mid-jungle duo did show up, as we discussed. But
in the end, it came down to team fights.
Yes.
And then all that map shit just did not fucking matter.
Just Rogue had the better angles, the better setups for the team fights. Yeah. Well done. So yeah, I mean, I agree with Caps. With insane performance from him. Yeah. Good shit. All right, I guess we can wrap it up then for this one. So this has been this episode of Best of the West. It's been a bit more random, but... well, yeah, that's just what we do. We just start talking and we don't know where it goes. We don't know where it ends up. Hope you liked this one. If you did, let us know in the comments below what you thought of the matches that were played last week. Who's your best in the West player? Which was your favorite EU choke at an International World Championship? Or because that's also a topic we touched on. Do you?
Oh god.
What's your favorite memory of I don't know, like... Which worlds, like Fnatic versus Top Esports, or G2 versus Damwon Kia in 2020, which was also not too pretty. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this one, and we'll see you next week for another episode of Best in the West.